This weekend saw the debut of Blade's daughter, a character, 6 years in the making? I think they announced the series from Tim Seeley and Logan Fairbairn, I think in 2016. Of course, that was canceled. In fact, Tim Seeley had to almost apologize and kind of quit the project because he did not have the right surface traits to be writing a teenage black one-quarter vampire character. It was not appropriate for Tim Seeley. It doesn't matter if he's a professional comic book writer. He didn't look right for the part. So he was removed, and we've been waiting this entire time. Now, Marvel had announced, they said, you know what, we're finally going to do that Blade's daughter comic book. I said, there's 3 things I can guarantee. Number 1, this will definitely be written by Vita Ayala. Number 2, this character will definitely be LGBTQ plus representative. And the first time you see her around another female character, they will fall in love. And number 3, she will be sassy as fuck. She's going to have some sass to her, folks. It turns out I was mostly right. They didn't even get Vita Ayala to write the character. Apparently she was busy, so they brought in Danny Lore. How the hell did we get to a place in comic books where you have Vita Ayala, one of the worst comic writers in the entire industry, like a D-rate comic writer, and now we've got second-rate Vita Ayala, Danny Lore. And I don't understand how Danny Lore can write this character. Apparently, it wasn't appropriate for Tim Seeley to write the character because he wouldn't be able to write authentic representation of the character, but I get that Danny Lore is also black, but she's not a teenager. There's no way Danny Lore is not the same age I am. I'm 44. Okay, she might not be that old, but there's no way Danny Lore is a day under 35. You know what I mean? You just saw the picture. Get out of here with that stuff. And there's no way that Danny Lore identifies as vampire. Are you telling me if you go on to Tumblr or someplace that you can't find a teenage black writer that identifies as a vampire? Feels like shooting fish in a barrel. You should be able to find that really easy. I don't think Danny Lore should be writing this. We've set precedents on this character, and we need exact representation from the writer on the traits that the character represents. But we didn't get that. We did get Danny Lore. I'm going to go more to the Tim Seeley stuff later. You won't hear me defend Tim Seeley very often on the channel. I think he's well past his prime, and he's not a very good comic book writer. But what happened to him was absolutely shitty, and he certainly didn't deserve the treatment that he got. But before that, let's get into the comic book and talk about it. It's hard to really ruin a 4-page comic book, but Danny Lore does her best. There's no way that the spin-off series of this is going to be any good. So let's get into how stupid this is. Danny Lore starts out the comic story with her hello fellow teenagers moment. As it turns out, Brielle, Blade's daughter, is defending her best friend who is, get this one. This is shocking. We've never seen a character like this in modern comic books. He's a teenage, nerdy black kid that's really smart and likes video games. We've never seen that kind of representation of black dudes anywhere in comic books. I guess we'll never, ever have a new black male character with a set of balls on him in the history of comic books because this is the character we've been introduced to for the last 10 years. He defeated a vampire in an online video game tournament, and this vampire Eternal touches her silver bracelet, and it hurts him, and she realizes what's happening, and she's like, quick, give me your game controller. My bracelets are silver. Jay, Eternal hates silver. And of course, the nerdy black kid does not want to give up his custom controller. He says, it doesn't explain why I need my custom controller. It doesn't really. It never really does. But of course, Brielle is going to use it as a weapon. Let's see this next page. I'm telling you, this goes in order. This bottom panel goes into this panel that I'm about to show you. Tell me what happens here. I would love to know what piece of action we're missing. She just apparently fell on her face for no reason. And of course, there are no backgrounds because most modern comic book artists are shit, and anybody put on a Danny Lore book is going to be really cheap because Danny Lore couldn't sell a comic book to save her life. Brielle, shockingly, is able to beat the shit out of a vampire with a video game controller and talk some crap and really bring that sassy attitude that only Danny Lore can bring to a character of these demographics. We've never seen a female sassy character in our lives. The worst part, of course, is the very final reveal. On the last page, you get this panel here, essentially explaining that her mother, who she lives with, is Saffron. She had a relationship with Blade, hence Blade's daughter, and it says Bloodline, daughter of Blade coming soon or something like that. Too soon, if you ask me. Like I said, it's hard to write a terrible comic book in 4 pages, but Danny Lore came close. I mean, it wasn't very good. It was pretty stupid, and we got a Hello Kids moment. You know, when you fight with your custom video game controllers and your nerdy friend is on the ground wanting to give us stuff, get out of here. You can't relate to the kids. Neither can I. But I know that, and you don't. Not surprisingly, this 4-page preview for Brielle, the Daughter of Blade series that's going to be coming up, does not inspire hope. But I will likely be covering it here on the channel, And most likely I'll be subjecting Doc to it, trying to make him quit the hobby that he's loved his entire life. I think Danny Lore's got it in her to make Doc give up comic books for good. With my help, of course, because I'm going to be the one that makes him read it, because I'm a terrible person. I imagine most of you know this story. In 2016, they announced that they were doing a Daughter of Blade series, and they announced that Tim Seeley and Logan Fairburn were on the project. In fact, Logan Fairburn was putting out preview pages. There was already a promo for the character in the series as it was going to come out, and people got mad. They were upset that Tim Seeley, a white creator, would be writing a fictional black one-quarter vampire character. I mean, this is hard to believe. It's hard to fathom that they would even make such a decision. What did Tim Seeley do? Well, he says he quit. This is what he said at the time regarding leaving the Daughter of Blade project. The short story is, I quit. The long story is, when Marvel hired me, I had just written 10 years of horror comics starring a female lead, so I seemed like a good fit. So we threw around ideas of doing Blade's daughter, and when they announced it, Marvel was in a weird place because they had announced the hip-hop covers, and a lot of people saw, here's another black lead with an all-white creative team, and you know it's valid and definitely the case. Once the announcement hit, it was just one bad week. I kind of felt that it was completely fair and never something we had considered. But everybody at Marvel was totally cool about it and wanted to find a way to make it work. After a while, I felt like it was me screwing this up. I couldn't help but feel like a black woman might write this stuff better than me and save them from me. In the wake of Black Panther launching so well, maybe Blade is the book they find new talent on. The Black Panther book he's talking about is Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther. So I don't think they really discovered any new comic book writing talent on that one. And I think after seeing the 4 pages preview of the new Blade's daughter, as well as Danny Lore's work on Blade in Darkhold, which was awful, I don't think they've discovered another talent on here, and this is probably a worse project for the change, even though Tim Seeley's not really a great writer. But I hate to see him sit there and acquiesce to the pressure and say, you know what, I shouldn't have been writing this project. That's a valid point. If you are a good comic book writer and you have the best pitch, you should be writing the comic book, period, point blank. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, red, green, whatever. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, whatever gender. It doesn't matter if you're 50 years old or a teenager. If you're the right person for the project, you should do the project. Casting writers into roles never works. Marvel have been trying to do this for about 8 years now. One time, they actually discovered a talent. Her name was Eve Ewing, and she left Marvel in about 1.5 years. Eve Ewing was able to see what a clusterfuck Marvel Comics is. Now, some of you may wonder, where did this come from? Certainly nobody was actually saying this. I do have an example here. It's from J.A. Michelin's essay for Comics Alliance, Why I'm Boycotting Marvel Comics. I feel like I have to say this 5 or 6 times. Whenever this comes up, I get a tsunami of white people wondering what my problem is and suggesting I'm racist for saying white people can't write about people of color. It's not that white people can't. It's not even that they shouldn't, except in some circumstances that I've written about ad nauseum recently. It's that white people are the ones who, historically and systemically, are consistently offered the opportunity. And in 2015, perhaps the right thing to do is let people of color have a turn. And of course, it was essays like that that got Tim Seeley essentially fired. He says he quit from the job, never to return to Blade's daughter until we have this very not promising Danny Lore story. I think if you have a Superman comic, you should be casting a wide net to see who would be the best Superman comic writer, period. You shouldn't be casting it by gender, race, or any of that stuff. Who are the writers that you think have the best pitches? You should be casting a wide net so you can find the right writer for the creator. Just because it's Superman doesn't mean the writer needs to be male or white. Now, we all know what happened. Tim Seeley ended up getting fired, and Marvel Comics essentially acquiesced to all of these ideas and pressures coming from a lot of people, specifically from Comics Alliance, and we essentially witnessed the destruction of Marvel over like a 2-year period where they wiped out all their characters, they started casting writers, and Marvel truly never has recovered since. We get good stories here and there, and yes, there are a couple of writers that really know what they're doing, but for the most part, we're getting just as bad stories at Marvel as we are at DC Comics. We finally got the Blade's daughter story. Blade's daughter seems like an interesting enough character. I don't think every superhero needs to have a child within the universe that shares their powers, but it's one of those tropes they've been playing off for a long time. The character had a chance. back in 2015, 2016, when they actually had a horror writer that knew how to do horror comics that was kind of hot at the time. Now they decided to bring in Danny Lore because it looks good, right? When you write the article, when you do the press release, hey, we brought in Danny Lore. This is a gender fluid, queer, Black creator. My goodness, we're checking all the boxes. We know Blade's daughter is going to be an LGBTQ plus character. This is going to be fantastic until you get the story. And nobody buys it after 2 or 3 issues because they realize Danny Lore can't write a comic book. Now, you may have remembered me saying the name Comics Alliance, where that essay came from, and a lot of really negative stuff that is continuing to affect the comic book industry to this day. There were a ton of bad actors in Comics Alliance. They are still in comic books. If you're a fan of manga, and you're like, oh, manga can never get bad. Oh, there's a dude from Comics Alliance that was insane, and he's one of the guys at Viz Media. If you don't know about this, I made a video about it, kind of looking at some of the characters, some of the actors from Comics Alliance, and all the damage they did to the comic book industry that is still affecting us to this day. The reason comics are shit, a lot of it has to do with Comics Alliance, people like this, and they've infiltrated the comic industry to this day.